Really interesting fight at strawweight, Matt. We have Thailand's Loma Lookboonmee taking on Sam Page, Sam Hughes. And for Sam Hughes, her debut didn't go all that well, but it was on incredibly short notice. She was replacing Angela Hill, taking on Tecia Torres. Tecia Torres was on a tidy little losing streak. She'd lost a number of fights in a row against very, very good competition. So the step to Angela Hill made a lot of sense. But with Hill out of the fight and Sam Hughes in, it was kind of interesting because if you looked at it, in her few fights coming into it, she had a win with LFA. She beat Danielle Hindley. It was good. Hindley wasn't the greatest level of competition. Before that, a submission loss to Vanessa Demopoulos. And if you go back and watch that fight, Sam Hughes was having a ton of success in the first round or two. And then after that, she kind of gets caught in the classic Vanessa Demopoulos triangle between my feet, and it never works out. Now, it did for Lupi Godinez, but it didn't for Sam Hughes. Both of them in the UFC. Sam lost her fight to Tecia Torres, and I'll take it to my grave that Lupi beat Jessica Penne, but that doesn't matter here, Matt. Because for Sam Hughes, a cardio queen of sorts in MMA, if you look at it, and I had to go back through the tape to figure out how to pronounce it properly, but at Wofford, she was a track and field star and a cross-country star, and you know exactly what you're going to get with Sam Hughes. Did she want to quit in her last fight? No. Did blood pool up inside of her eye and her coach made the decision to stop it? Yeah, and it was a great decision by the coach. Doctors and physicians alike all agreed. Good job by the coach. So for Sam Hughes, she comes off of that loss to Tecia Torres, and now you're taking on, well, a very good striker in Loma Lookboonmee. And for Loma, her last fight really just continues to age well. She beat Jinyu Fry, and in that fight, did she have the best performance? I don't know, but she did win it, and she won it halfway convincingly. Before that, if you look at the overall body of work in the UFC, she beat Alexandra Albu, who's in the UFC video game for some reason.
Very strange career if you ever want to just go on a weird Tapology search, but either way.
Albu and then Angela Hill, you lose the decision there. And I got caught, and a lot of people were upset with me when I said Angela Hill is going to out Muay Thai, the Muay Thai champ, who pretty much grew up in a Muay Thai gym. It happened. But the problem
Does your arm ever get tired from patting yourself on the back from that?
Loma Lookboonmee isn't really a strawweight. That's the thing. She's very, very small for the division. She's more so an atomweight, but you got to shoot your shot when you get the opportunity. Coming out of Tiger Muay Thai with the Hickman brothers, and if you look at it through the years and through the Instagram, a close training partner of one King, Casey O'Neill. It's now in the UFC at 125. So all this to say, it is an interesting matchup. Sam Hughes, she's got a great jab. She can throw decent volume. She can throw power, back you up to the fence, and really start to land. And if she's able to take you down, she is quite adept on the ground. Was it to her detriment against a really tough out in Demopoulos? It was, but that's pretty much the case for Sam Hughes. For Loma Lookboonmee, very, very good striker, and her takedown defense isn't awful.
I wouldn't say it is that bad. Again, for someone who's been striking the majority of their life, I actually think Loma Lookboonmee's defensive grappling is probably ahead of where it should be, and I do think it's something that improves fight in and fight out, because at the end of the day, she still only is 25 years old, and when you've been growing up primarily as a striker, you're going to learn all those other facets of your game at a rapid pace. So I do think Loma Lookboonmee is still a learning mixed martial artist and is still getting better fight in and fight out. But this is kind of one of those classic UFC fights, isn't it? You have that one fighter who on short notice had to fight someone in the top 15. You know they're not good enough to fight someone in the top 15. So it's like, here's someone outside the top 15 who still has respect in the division, I'd say. They're not just like a UFC newcomer or someone coming immediately off Contender Series. It's not maybe one of the most established names, but again, still a good name in Loma Lookboonmee. So here it goes. How good are you, Sam Hughes? If you can't beat Loma, then this is probably it for you in the UFC. But if you are able to get a win over Lookboonmee, it really proves a lot, because Lookboonmee, like you had mentioned, not just world-class striking, but her defensive grappling is good enough that if you can beat her, it shows that you're going to be able to take down those other strikers in that division, where if you do have to fight, maybe not Tecia Torres in the future, who has great wrestling of her own, but maybe you fight an Angela Hill, and we've seen that she's a great striker, but we've seen wrestling be a bit of an Achilles heel. I'm not saying that tomorrow Sam Hughes is going to beat Angela Hill. I'm just saying that a win over Loma Lookboonmee kind of sets that career path into motion. My issue for Sam Hughes is on the feet, she's hittable, to be quite honest, and she doesn't really react to forward pressure or damage all that well. She is great going forward when she is the one kind of being the bully, for lack of a better term, in the cage, but when she is the one going backwards, she can get pieced up. And For Hughes, it's just her inability to exit on an angle. She doesn't really back up and go to the left or back up and go to the right and the reset her footwork. She just kind of backs up when she is accepting damage or when her opponent is moving forward with a combination. And with someone like Lookboonmee who can throw 1 or 2 strikes just to kind of hide that third strike and then use their third strike for power, those aren't things that I love when I'm looking at Sam Hughes. Now, I do think, like you had said, Hughes is the better wrestling. She is the better cardio out of these two fighters, so she can really impose her will, use her height, and what I assume just is a size advantage in this fight to really wear on Lookboonmee, especially early on. I do think Sam Hughes can win a decision in this fight, but for me, this fight's really just going to come down to who is the one moving forward, because if Lookboonmee can get Sam Hughes up against the cage, maybe not in a clinch, but just get her against the cage to where she can start to land a combination, she can start to land volume, well, Loma Lookboonmee can hit pretty hard, and those shots are going to start adding up as this fight goes on. Whereas if Sam Hughes can be the one pressing Lookboonmee up against the fence, dirty boxing, making this an ugly fight, then Sam Hughes does have a path to victory, and that's why this is a pretty interesting fight.
I was really surprised when I looked at the odds. So Loma Lookboonmee open a minus 310 favorite. She's minus 379 at this point. For Sam Hughes, open a plus 260 or thereabouts. She's at a plus 289 right now. And if you have a look at the Tapology votes, holy smokes, 949 of them, 88% Lookboonmee, 85% by decision. And I have to go out there again, in that Sam Hughes fight against Demopoulos, it was a 30-26 going into the 4th round. Sam Hughes was taking over. Now, the reason one was a 10-8, there was an illegal strike at 1 point, but still, that's a credible enough performance in a 3-round fight against the name that you kind of know and love, I guess I should say. She's been on the big stage for a while, Demopoulos has. It's an interesting fight. It's tricky, again, for Loma Lookboonmee last time out, Jinyu Fry, you look at the scores, 3 30-27s, 129-28. If she can keep Sam Hughes off of her and she can at least start to land a combination, I do think Loma Lookboonmee should be able to win, but that line does scare me away.
No, I do agree. I like Lookboonmee in this fight. I just feel like if the fight's on the inside, she can not only land with a higher volume, but just with more power too. And I do think her takedown defense will be good enough to where if Hughes is going for takedowns, it's just going to result more of a clinch exchange more than anything else. It probably won't result in Lookboonmee getting taken down to the mat. I will say that Sam Hughes has a path to victory, but no, I will also side with Loma Lookboonmee in this fight, but I would definitely leave it off my card with those odds.
Matt, people don't like to hear that, but we're just being honest. We're both going with Thailand's Loma Lookboonmee to get the win, and it is a very interesting fight. We got a great card coming up. Our co-main event, Cub Swanson taking on one really tough out in Giga Chikadze. In the main event, you have Dominic Reyes and Yuri Prohashka. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.